Today, we're here to do a live coaching session about moving on into a more senior role, possibly a management role, and how to position yourself to apply for those roles if you haven't done them before. And this is a very important one to discuss for people that are currently unemployed, but also for those who are currently employed but thinking about advancing in their careers in the future.
I'm Renata Bernarde, a virtual career coach and job hunting expert and creator of the Job Hunting Made Simple online course. Every week I record a live career coaching session where I help you with your career progression. I'm also the host of the Job Hunting podcast, where I interview experts to discuss recruitment, job hunting, and jobs of the future. So make sure you subscribe, follow, and welcome aboard.
Good audio. Woohoo! We're good to go. It only took 3 minutes. That's fine. It's not a record, but it's better than most days here. Hello, everybody on Facebook. Hello, Instagram. So good to be here again. We took a week's break, Stella and I, to take a breather and put our affairs in order, both personally and professionally. We have a lot going on. We have so many new members on Facebook. Thank you so much for following us. We are delighted to have you. We have a few new members on Instagram. Instagram, keep up. We need more of you. So it's wherever you are, wherever you're following us, that's great. Don't worry. There is no FOMO. You're not missing out on anything. The best way to keep up with what I'm doing is to sign up for the newsletter, quite frankly, because once you are in the newsletter, you will get the podcast, you get any of the live coaching sessions recorded and sent to you, you get all my advice and articles that I find online that I think are good reads for job hunters and anyone that is interested in developing their careers, and I send to you weekly. So sign up for the newsletter. That's the best thing that you can do to keep in touch and keep connected. And then, whatever social media channels you enjoy being engaged with, I'm there. So find me and follow me wherever you found me. That could be Facebook. There's a private Facebook group for job hunters. I'm on Instagram. I am also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a funny beast for me because, of course, as a career coach, I want all my clients to be on LinkedIn and to be really well positioned on LinkedIn. But as a professional myself, career coaching is part of my portfolio of things that I do. So on LinkedIn, I am a career coach. I'm also head of market strategy for Mind Tribes, which is a diversity and inclusion consultancy firm. And I also have my own consultancy called Pandora, and I work with some amazing people there as well. So you will look at my LinkedIn and think, oh, she does all these things. Yes, I do all of those things. So there you go. Today, we're here to do a live coaching session about moving on into a more senior role, possibly a management role, and how to position yourself to apply for those roles if you haven't done them before. And this is a very important one to discuss for people that are currently unemployed, but also for those who are currently employed but thinking about advancing in their careers in the future. And I'd love to talk to you more about that. So stick around and we will go through a few important pointers here to help you not only get a job, but get a better job if advancing in your career and moving upwards is what you're looking for. It's not always what people are looking for. There are several other goals in one's careers that you can aspire to. For example, this morning I was interviewing for the podcast the CEO of Regional Australian Institute, Liz Ritchie, and your goal could be that you want to get out of a big city and move into regional Australia or wherever country you are, moving to a regional town, and that's a different goal. So we will talk about that when we have the podcast with Liz Ritchie out and available to you in a couple of weeks' time. So there are several. You might be keen to work on being more flexible, working flexibly, having more part-time, or doing a portfolio career like I do. There are different goals, but one that's more common for me to work with as a career coach with my clients is career advancement, upwards mobility. And it's easier to move from job to job that goes sideways, and it's a little bit harder and requires a little bit more strategy to go upwards. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. But before I do that, I wanted to remind you that we have, hi Carla, hello everybody on Instagram. I can't see people on Facebook as much, but I know you're there. I can see people that are looking on Facebook. Remember to post comments, guys. I love to see comments, either now or when you listen to this as a recording, if you have any questions. Okay, so before we go into the topic of today, I'd like to remind you about the podcast this week with Marianne Roux. So we've had Marianne Roux before. It's not deja vu. Marianne Roux was on podcast number 25. That was the beginning of COVID and was one that I did intentionally to support people going through unemployment during this pandemic. And it was, look, I'll tell you what, it's very hard to prepare content when you're going through so much change and crisis, and I had to very quickly shift my thinking of how the podcast was going to progress and find new topics to quickly support my listeners going through difficult times. And Marianne was the first person I thought of to invite for the podcast at the beginning of COVID. So Gleb, who was also part of the COVID series, Janet, those were also, they were already booked in, and I just needed to pivot the topic. So that was great because they are really fantastic guests for COVID related issues. But Marianne was like, I really need to have her to support the listeners going through unemployment, redundancy, or any crisis that they are feeling, even if they're employed. You know, it's a very difficult time for people that are coping with changes at work as well. And she's an expert in jobs of the future. She's an expert in disruption and in helping corporations adjust to disruption. But of course, with that comes the individuals that work in corporations, the leaders that lead corporations, and their ability to think dynamically and be agile. And so we did that first podcast on the 25th, and the podcast this week, which is number 38, was an opportunity for us to review what the assumptions we had at the beginning of COVID, and for her to give us some insight on how her clients are adjusting, how she sees the world of work adjusting to COVID and what's coming after COVID, and to talk about personal agility and how important that is as a strength, as a skill set, as something that you bring to your workplace to support them in thinking dynamically and problem solving. And I really encourage you to listen to that podcast. We have it in audio. You can download it on iTunes and Spotify, Google Podcasts, or you can watch it as a video on iTunes and YouTube. And that is all available, of course, on my website. If you go to my website's blog, it's all there. All the links to the files are there. And I encourage you to listen to that. It's a really important one. And Marianne, she speaks in such a way, she's such a professor. You want to take notes, about everything she's saying. It's really brilliant. So that's what I wanted to remind you of. And now let's go back to the topic, which is an important one. And like I said, one that I get hired to help clients a lot. And I wanted to give you some tips and advice on how you can advance in your career and apply for roles that you haven't not done before. Now, this was one of the topics that I had planned for months ago, and I looked at it this week and I looked at the title and I thought, oh my goodness, maybe this is one of those topics where I need to talk about next year, a few months from now. We're in the middle of COVID, and just getting a job is hard enough, Renata. Why are you stretching your followers and your community and, asking them too much? But then I very recently helped someone do just that. And they did it very successfully and called me on the weekend to say they got the job, and they got the manager's job, and they have previously never done that job before except for an acting role. So they were acting manager a couple of times during holidays when the manager was on holidays or away and so on. And together we did the resume and we prepared for interviews. And this is something that we've done over a couple of months, and unsuccessfully a couple of times, and now successfully. So, we did it in the middle of COVID. It can be done. Why is it harder in the middle of COVID? It is harder in the middle of COVID because there are lots of people looking for work, and there could be people looking for work that already have the managerial experience, or the experience that they bring, that are an exact fit for the job that you are applying for. And you're applying for potential, where there could be someone that is applying with the experience already built into their resume. So it's almost as like it's an unfair advantage that they bring if you don't have that. But it can be done, as it was proven by this example I've just given you, real example, and it's done all the time. A lot of people get hired for potential as opposed to people that bring the experience in their toolkit, and you could be one of them. And the other thing that you can do is to start preparing yourself for that opportunity in a few years' time. So you might be employed at the moment, and you can, with some of the tips and advice that I'll give you, put yourself in the best possible situation for career advancement. So let's talk to you if you're currently in transition, if you're not employed at the moment and you're looking for work and you want to make the most out of this situation. That is, instead of looking for a similar job, you want to try to get a job that's slightly above the one that you were doing before. My advice to you would be to consider in your resume if you have enough experience in the field that has been crystallized by, for example, as my client had, potential acting opportunities, that you have been acting in the role on and off, that you can substantiate by having had some managerial experience and opportunity even in previous roles, even if they were more junior roles. What your future employer wants to see is that they can trust you with leadership. They can trust you with more responsibilities. So you have to exemplify that in your resume and also on your LinkedIn. We'll talk about LinkedIn in a minute, because the LinkedIn can be your undoing at times. You can showcase that in your responsibilities. So when you're applying for a job and you have your resume, you list your position and then you list your key responsibilities and your key achievements. And if you want to see the best way to do that according to a recruiter, watch the podcast with Anita Ziemer. It's a few weeks ago, and she really points that out, how recruiters like to see key responsibilities and key achievements, and she gives some examples. So you can showcase in your key responsibilities the range of tasks and your understanding of the business. So even if you have not been the manager, the fact that you have done all of the different types of tasks and operations and projects that sit underneath that manager's role means that you have a very good understanding of the business, of that department, of that project, whatever it is that that enterprise is doing. And you might then be ready to take on the leadership. So think about everything that you can say that has to do with the management role and what that manager needs to be responsible for that you may have done as somebody sitting a level below. And list that in your responsibilities. And a list of responsibilities shouldn't be a supermarket list. So remember to put what is the most important aspect of that, but then sprinkle the others as part of the written part of your cover letter, or the way that you do the narrative in your summary, at the executive summary at the top of your resume, for example, or your about section on your LinkedIn profile. And then in your key achievements, you need to demonstrate that you have been a good performer, that you have already achieved for your past employers great results as part of the team, as a team member, okay? That means that when you get the manager role, you will be able to achieve great results as well. So people want to see that you not only had the responsibilities, which are part of your job and you have to do them anyway, but you have achieved excellent results. So the key achievements are really important, especially if you're advancing in your career and you want to be in that management role. Carla, thank you for your feedback. That's lovely. I'm not going to translate now, but I love that you said that. Thank you. So that's on Instagram, guys. Sorry, I'm reading lots of things as I talk to you. All right, what else you can do? Okay, now I mentioned LinkedIn. Oh, before I talk about LinkedIn, one thing that I think has always helped me personally, and I am very strategic in the way that I work with my clients, is in the list of references. The references need to match what you're trying to achieve. So, for example, for this client in particular that just got his position, his job, the references were two other managers, now his peers, right? The fact that these people backed him up and say, he is ready to be a manager. We are managers. We are his references. Says a lot. And this is important. You have to do that self-reflection, and you have to say, do I have all of these things? And am I ready to apply for a role? This is what makes you be the top 10%. This is what makes people think, okay, let's get Renata in for a job interview. And then the job interview then translates in you being in the top 2%, and then the top 2% are the two best people, or the three best people, and then they have to make a choice. Okay? And the choice has nothing to do with the three best people's abilities. It's more how you click and connect. It's personality, and you shouldn't feel bad if you don't get the position. It means nothing. It means they didn't click with you as much as they clicked with somebody else. It doesn't mean you're not good enough for that position. And you can apply again and again. If you get an interview and you're in the top 2, the top 3, and you didn't get the role, there's nothing wrong with you. You just keep applying. Imagine if Nadal or Federer or any of the great tennis players decided that they weren't going to play tennis anymore because they didn't win that match. Right? That's not how you play the game. Okay? You know you're winning when you're going through the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and so on. And every now and then you get into the finals and then you win. Okay? So this is how you go through recruitment and selection process. That's why I use sports analogies all the time. It's to make you understand that this is a step-by-step approach, and every step that you move closer to that position is a win. It's a win for you, and you're doing great. So you have to remember what you've done right and replicate again and again. So the references are really important, and they need to match what you're trying to achieve, and have the right training as well. So some people put a lot of their training there. If the training doesn't match what you're trying to achieve, it shouldn't be in your resume. You don't have to do a supermarket list of training. You just need to have the right training for the role. You don't need to have a supermarket list of key responsibilities or achievements. You just need to have the ones that are important to get you that role. Okay? And if you are currently employed and you're thinking, Renata, I get it now. I am employed. I can spend the next 6 months covering some of these gaps so that by 2021, I have a much better resume and I have crystallized some of the things that you have said so that I feel solid, I feel confident applying for a role that is a step above the one that I have now. And another way to do this as well is go a step above internally within your organization before you go out. And this helps, especially if you're going to apply for roles where you're managing people. So let's say you currently manage no one, it's just you, and you're managing your clients, which is already a lot. Let's say you have a couple of accounts and you're managing lots of clients, but you don't manage people. And you see this job opportunity where you would be managing 20 people, 30 people. It's a big jump, and it may not look at it like for you because you can do it. You have this feeling inside you that you can do it. But the way that you spread your time across the day and across the week and the month to actually manage that people is completely different from being an account manager or a relationship manager or a case manager. So that experience of actually managing people is one that is important for you to acquire, even if you go from no one to managing 2, 3, 4 people. And if you can get that internal promotion before you go out, you have a better chance of moving into that role where you're managing more people. So I have one client right now where we're working on that strategy. And, there are some techniques and things that we work together to speed up his internal promotion. And then the second phase would be to spend some time in that position and then go out and apply for a role externally. That is a great way of doing things. It requires a lot of diplomacy and possibly change of mindset and attitude around your work, so if you're already very tired about where you are, you might need to change your motivation and motivate yourself again to allow the internal stakeholders to see you as a potential for promotion and give 100% to that promotion and use that as your MBA. Some people go out and study how to manage people, other people just manage people. And it's much cheaper to do that. It's much cheaper to do that and hire somebody like me and have that coaching supporting you for the first 90 days, for example. All of that is really useful and important as part of your career advancement. Now, why is your LinkedIn important and why it could be your undoing? Because you may have an excellent resume and you're applying for jobs and you're focusing on doing that in your cover letter, but then your resume is still showcasing you in the light of your previous position or your current position in a more junior light. And I see that a lot. I see that all the time, and sometimes if you've been going up and up and up and being promoted internally within an organization, which is fantastic. I have clients like that at the moment. They've had 4 or 5 promotions, bang, 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 bang. These are go-getters. These are really proactive employees that another organization will be lucky to have, because these people perform and they are ambitious and they're good at their jobs, so much so that they get new promotions all the time. but they forget their LinkedIn. So their LinkedIn is basically the LinkedIn of a graduate. It's been sitting there idle and abandoned forever with an old photo where they looked 15 years younger and not much else. So you have to take this opportunity now, and we many of us have a lot of time on our hands because we're in lockdown or it's COVID, we're working from home. Spend some time doing some TLC on your LinkedIn, and if you need any help with that, I do LinkedIn audits. It's a very cost-effective way to hire me to support you. It's not that expensive and it really does help. I've had clients from all over the world recently hire me to do LinkedIn audits, and I love doing it, and I've seen some great results. So that's a really important one. And if you are currently employed and you are thinking about what I've just said and you're thinking, I can see where the gaps are, but not really sure how to do these next stages, you can hire me for a consultancy and we can do it together. And I think this is so important and an obvious step for people to do. As an example, I am about to have a 1-hour chat with a financial advisor because my husband and I are so confused with all of these opportunities that we have in Australia with, we can stop paying our mortgage for 6 months. We can take money out of our superannuation if we want to, which is like our retirement fund. And we have all of these things going on. And our insurances are about to expire. We have quite a lot and we pay a lot of money on like life insurance and a whole bunch of other insurances. And quite frankly, I need advice. So I'd rather pay, a little bit of money to get the best advice and then save a whole lot of money. And that's what I'm kind of inviting you to consider for your career. Maybe investing 1 hour of your time and my time and prepare yourself for the next 2 years. Quite frankly, COVID will be, it's a marathon. It's going to be a long time coming, and I have a lot of intelligence that I could be sharing with you and tailoring specifically to your needs. So think about that, and we're going to add the links below for personal one-on-one consultations and LinkedIn audits if that's what you want to do. I hope this has helped. There's a lot of free content out on my website and resources that you can download and apply as well. And I hope that you keep in touch, and I would love to see questions from you. Now, as you know, I log out of my public page and then I go into my private Facebook group and I give them a little bit more love. I have shared with them recently a job ad that came out that I think is a perfect example of job ads that are going to be coming out from now on in terms of the skill set that it asks employees. And when I saw it, I'm like, yes, this is exactly how I've thought this was going to be and what I thought was going to happen. And it was a relief for me. I'm like, oof, I'm so glad because I've just redone a lot of content for my online course, Job Hunting Made Simple, and I was glad that I was right. So I'm going to be talking about that specific job ad and what's different about the skill set and the prerequisites that job requires to those who are applying for it. It's completely different from anything before March 2020. So if you want to join me there, just sign up for the group. You have about 5 minutes. We'll let you in and you can join me for another 10 to 15 minutes talking about that specific ad, which I think is really important. Anyway, talk to you soon, you guys. Stick around, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Lovely to see you. Bye.
I hope this session helped you with your job hunting and career plans. Don't forget to follow me, and most importantly, subscribe to the Reset Your Career community so that I can send you my weekly newsletter for job hunters and career enthusiasts, as well as my free tools and extra love. Bye for now, and see you next time.